Welcome to Brainstorium. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning Dreampunk and deeply weird fantasy author. And yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard, and this is episode 35 of Brainstorium. Now, last time I talked about the benefits of writing from a third-person point of view, which is probably now my favourite narrative perspective in which to write, but it's not always been that way. And I do still write in first person sometimes because there are specific effects that I want to achieve, which I know I can do better in first. So I thought, why not follow up with an episode all about first person narrative? Today I'm going to do just that with practical tips you can use in your own writing and drawing from examples from a short story I've been working on recently. But before I do, I must share some amazing feedback I got from a new listener to the show, Robin Gillett, who hit the comment button on the Brainstorium page. Robin says, I only recently discovered your podcasts and I am absolutely enthralled. The idea of just taking random words and formulating them into story ideas sends me into a creative frenzy. And I love all the insightful info you give on the creative process. This is undoubtedly one of the most inspiring websites. Wow, thank you so much, Robin. I'm thrilled to have thrilled you. It's wonderful to hear that I've inspired someone and that Brainstorium is doing what it's supposed to do. That is, inspire people and get you into the creative mood. Now, as the audience size for Brainstorium slowly but surely grows, I'm hopeful that others feel the same way. I hope you feel the same way. So if you're listening and enjoying this, please tell a friend. Maybe say something on social media. It really helps me on my author journey. We're all on a journey, so let's see if we can support each other along the way. And do get in touch with me if you have any comments or even if you publish a story that was inspired by one of the ideas on the show. Now, without further ado, let's get on with some more writing insights. As a discovery writer, in the early stages of drafting, I write to find out what a story is about and also to find and then capture its unique flavour, because each story has its own particular atmosphere or feeling. I feel this as a reader, so I must pursue this as a writer and to find the best way to welcome readers into the world of my story. While I originally started out writing mostly in first person, it was only when I switched to third for some time and really got into third person, got comfortable with it, that I then came back to first person and was able to see so much more clearly what it does and what the potential pitfalls can be. It's contrast and change that gives us wisdom, I feel. Experience, I suppose. Now, I'll be honest with you. Some first drafts come out pretty well, and I've even read out some of them on this show. But others are a complete mess, usually the ones that want to be a bit longer. One particular mess I've written is called The Alchemist's Breakthrough. I'm thinking, yeah, this is definitely one for the new collection. I remembered it as a fairly mature draft that probably needs a bit of tweaking here and there. But, oh dear, it was a bit of a patchwork mess. But despite the mess, I fell in love with the main character, a professor. I haven't come up with a name yet. Sometimes names take time with me. He's just so odd. A venerable alchemist about to retire, and in my mind's eye, I sense his sweet nature and I see his knobbly knees under his cloak. His sense of decorum, propriety, but also a kind of playfulness that isn't quite done yet. He hasn't entirely squashed his silly humour with all the decades of teaching at the Alchemists' Guild. And while he's in a hurry to finish his packing and retire to a tropical island where he can lounge on a beach and do nothing, perhaps write his memoirs, there's a darkness gathering around his beloved guild. The military are gradually moving in, and our professor suspects they're interested in a new compound metal that's been discovered, aptly named Withstand. With an energy crisis looming and political tensions building, a war seems likely. But if the world of alchemy is being roped into it, it seems he's retiring just in time. Or is he? He has an itch to perform one last experiment which will end up changing everything and will set the military on his heels. I say no more about the plot, no spoilers. I've packed a lot into this one. Now, while you can write intimately in the third person and feel close to what the protagonist is feeling and thinking, there is nothing quite so close as first person. The most extreme versions are a diary or a monologue where the character is talking directly to you, telling you their thoughts as they occur. This also gives it a sense of immediacy, even if you're writing in past tense. You're there with them. Interestingly, I've used the word telling you their thoughts. And if you've dipped into creative writing guides or workshops at all, you'll be familiar with the phrase show, don't tell, which is fraught with apparent contradictions, I find, and many different opinions. I'm not sure anyone ever gets it completely right according to the experts, and I've read incredible best-selling and classic authors who tell all over the place. I would argue that sometimes we must tell. I won't go into this too much because show don't tell is a massive topic, difficult to navigate, but when you summarise something, you're generally telling. So, she was shocked by the news is telling. Her hands trembled at the news is showing. You can visualise it more clearly. You can feel her shock instead of being told about it. But first person is all about voice. And yes, I am coming back to The Alchemist in a second. Your protagonist might think or tell us that they or someone else is shocked because that is what they observe. They might say, well, I was shocked to hear that. As you do that, you are telling. But in a way, you're sort of showing as well because you're giving us a sense of the character's voice with the way they tell us, the style in which they tell us. You may even use words that would usually seem cluttered in the third person narrative. Simple examples are words like quite and sort of. Then there are adverbs like suddenly, noisily. There's so much in creative writing guides that warns us away from adverbs. But what if you're writing in first person and your character thinks in this way? If that's the case, and if these cluttered ways of thinking and speaking paint a picture, if they show us the tension inside that character, or a tension between them and their situation, or with other characters, this can really work to enhance your story's flavour. So coming back to The Alchemist's breakthrough, let me give you an example from my story in progress, which ties all of these things together, hopefully. This is from version 2, although trust me, it will need at least another once over before I even dare get in contact with Heather, my editor. My hands itched to get my packing done. But I needed breakfast, another strong cup of tea, yet the sunshine through the window called to me. Perhaps I was returning to my youth, getting wistful and poetic in my old age, but even as I set down my mug, I remained torn. It fascinates me that the body has its own wants, despite the desires of the mind, and while sleepiness tugged me one way towards the kitchen, the kettle, my skin longed for a touch of that sunshine. Mooching up the concrete steps to the patio, blearily, I wondered whether it would be possible to separate these desires into individual strands, perhaps even extract them. Tiredness versus the urge to go outside. But something made me freeze on the steps. A song, a woman's voice carried on the breeze. So here I'm using all sorts of words and phrases I would never use in third-person narrative or even in conversation in real life. Phrases like returning to my youth. I wouldn't say that, but the professor would. The story is carried on his voice. We experience it all through his perspective. And when he freezes on the steps, we are on the steps with him. We feel his surprise. The change in his mood is a change in the language, the tone. As he becomes more tense, he doesn't have the time or the mind space to come up with decorative language. It becomes more terse. I'll give you another example of his language, not mine. Bear in mind our professor has lived and worked in a very male-oriented environment. So when he's faced with a woman who seems to know an awful lot about alchemy, I can use the line, "Her utter audacity rendered me mute." Imagine writing this in third person as the exact equivalent as he. Her utter audacity rendered him mute. What? It just sounds so wrong. Rendered him mute. I would never write that. I would never say that. It sounds almost archaic. But my funny little professor is a bit archaic. And to say utter audacity, we're getting his opinion firsthand, his summary of a woman who shocks him. This is what so-called telling is for, a reaction in shorthand. And it prepares us for a twist. The professor's opinion about this so-called audacious woman will be proved wrong. His perspective on a lot of things will be challenged, and that's part of the fun and the tension and the conflict of this particular story. I don't think I could do that in third person, not like this. This brings me on to another technique that works really well in first person, the unreliable narrator. Your protagonist may have false assumptions about the world, about other characters, or the situation unfolding around them. And this is quite a fun thing to do, because you're making the reader feel a bit clever, being a little bit ahead of that character. It can also build suspense when you can see a threat that the protagonist cannot, because of their prejudices or assumptions. Don't get into the car with him, you're thinking. He's got a gun. Just as the protagonist climbs in thinking, oh, he's so friendly, he's so good looking. But a word of warning, don't take it too far. If the reader is going, oh, for goodness sake, can't you see what's going on? It might glue them to the page to watch the debacle unfold. But if you frustrate the reader too much, if the protagonist isn't engaging or likeable enough, or if the tension isn't quite there, then the reader might not bother sticking around to watch. There are other deeper examples of manipulating the reader's perception, as we only see things through that character's eyes in first person, when they are completely wrong or lying to us. A big example, which I haven't actually read yet, is Gone Girl, where it's written from the point of view of an untrustworthy narrator, someone with a hidden agenda. Possibly the biggest twist you can achieve is if a first-person narrator has led the reader up the garden path. There are other effects you can achieve through first person. The protagonist could do something truly awful, like kill someone, but seeing it from their point of view makes us more open to understanding why they did it. It seems less cold-blooded than if we saw them do it from the outside, from someone else's point of view, or just not knowing what's going on in their heads as they do it. And so we move to the potential drawbacks of first person. It restricts us as authors from seeing things that are going on which aren't happening directly to the protagonist. It's immersive, being in the head of one character. It can become claustrophobic. As authors, we can get sucked into the character's thoughts, like a monologue. But no one wants to read a ream of internal dialogue where nothing much is happening. We must keep the action moving, focus on what's happening, what's changing in their world, not just in their head, and their interactions with other characters. A distinctive voice, like the Professor of Alchemy, can add a layer of entertainment if they're intriguing or likeable, or obviously wrong about something, but it is a risk doing this. If a reader happens to not really like the personality, and if it's too strong a flavour, they might lose interest and stop reading. But I'm hoping the Professor is odd enough, likeable enough, and experiences enough surprises throughout the story that you would enjoy reading it, even if you've never met anyone like him before and might not relate to him necessarily. Each story is a funny creature of its own, with its own unique demands, so it's important to listen to the atmosphere of a story as it begins to flow through your pen or through your fingertips onto your keyboard. Should you use third or first person? Go with your instincts, but don't be afraid to dabble. You can test first person through dialogue, or by imagining the protagonist writing down what's happened to them in an email or a letter. Then switch to another character's point of view, or just pretend that you're there watching the scene unfold from a hiding place where none of the characters can see you. Which way ignites your imagination the most? And which one seems easiest or most flexible for what you want to portray in this particular story? It's really one of those things that comes down to experience and experimenting, which is why I'm always going on about the benefits of writing short stories, because they are our playground to test these things out and discover the huge range of effects we can achieve through the magic of writing. Now, I feel it is time for us to see what new story ideas await us in The Socks of Destiny. That's right, and regular listeners will know that Exquisite Corpse randomises words and phrases into a sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. And anyone can send me words through my play page at annatizard.com. So let's reach into The Socks of Destiny and see what our first word is. This is from someone called Warner Hedgehog. Unhelpful. Okay. Next word is our first noun from the noun sock. This is from Stephanie Dargon Lucci. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Drag queen. We have an unhelpful drag queen. Let's try for the action sock. This is from Anonymous. Climbed Mount Kilimanjaro to meet. I'm already picturing the high heels This is a tricky thing to do. So our drag queen, despite being unhelpful, really wants to meet someone at the top of a mountain. This is from Robin, the mail lady, who delivers us the word warm. Okay, so final noun. And see what this is. This is from Elena Dennison. Haberdasher. Oh my god, I think that works. Kind of. Okay, I'm just going to shuffle them into order and read them to you as one sentence. Okay. The unhelpful drag queen climbed Mount Kilimanjaro to meet the warm haberdasher. Warm because they have warm fabric around them, perhaps a wool mixture, something like that. Why would a drag queen climb a mountain to meet a haberdasher? For a fabulous new dress or something? It's strange, though, to go all the way up a mountain and in those spike heels. I like the idea, though, of a meeting in a remote place, a secret place. And it must be a very special fabric. Would it give you powers of invisibility? Although I can't imagine a drag queen wanting to be invisible when they are so visible on stage. Unless, I don't know, it's making me think about identity in general for someone who likes to be on stage. So they have a stage identity which might be very different to who they normally are. Perhaps they're just a normal guy who has a normal job, and they like to reserve a special place in their minds and wardrobes for these moments on stage when they turn into a beautiful starlet on stage. This fabric, what could it be? All this talk of theatre is making me think about special curtains, but that's not quite enough. A cloak that would enable him or her to fly? A flying drag queen. This is just getting weirder and weirder. I think there's an obvious temptation to take all of the words literally because we can. Although I'm not quite sure how the drag queen is unhelpful. That would add another dimension. So there's got to be something rare and magical about this fabric. This warm haberdasher has to sell. And I just think it would be worth, if you wanted to try writing something about this, it's worth just always go beyond. I like to go beyond what is actually just physically happening and start to think about what's going on with the characters psychologically. You can use the story to explore profound ideas about our visible selves and our invisible selves. In some way, you can reflect the person that we might show at work to our colleagues versus who we really are. But can a stage identity or a seemingly kind of false persona that we might show to the people at work, can that still be a part of who we are? Life's a stage, as Shakespeare said. And could there be something about a magical fabric that could, I don't know, draw the curtain, as it were, perhaps literally and metaphorically, between these two personas that we might have, or bring them together in some way? I feel like there's the beginnings of something there which could only really be discovered if I or you sit down and try writing it and to see where it goes. But for now, I think it's time for our next Exquisite Corpse. So our first word is from Mariah, greedy. Next word and noun is from Anonymous. Ice cream truck driver. Wow, a greedy ice cream truck driver. I have a feeling I know what they like to eat. They have easy access to. So the next one is from Robin, the mail lady. Flew on a helicopter to reach. Ooh. We have a variety of vehicles in this particular sentence. This is from Elena Dennison. Leaping. Okay, and the final word is from Stephanie Dargan-Lucci. Killer. Right. Let's put it all together, and what have we got? The greedy ice cream truck driver flew on a helicopter to reach the leaping killer. I think it's time to have some green tea and see if that makes any difference at all to my imagination. Right. Okay, this is well, I was going to say this is a weird one. They're all weird, aren't they? Let's face it. Leaping killer. That's making me think of. There's a character in Penny Dreadfuls, these Victorian little pamphlets that were sold for a penny, as I understand it, back in the day, in Victorian times, called Spring-Heeled Jack. And I think he was just this bizarre person. I don't know if they thought he was a demon. It was a myth of that time, but they used to write about him in these little penny dreadfuls, and he was supposed to have sort of bright red, sort of glowing, fiery eyes, and he could breathe fire or something, and I think he had wings, but whether or not they were meant to be or thought of as part of an actual costume, or whether that people actually thought he was a demon. I'm assuming he went around killing people or just generally causing chaos and terror. That's what's coming to mind, but that doesn't necessarily go with a greedy ice cream truck driver, because in the Victorian era, did they have ice cream trucks of any kind, like horse-drawn carts with... No, because it would all have to be on ice, wouldn't it? No, you wouldn't even have a wheelbarrow. I mean, write in and tell me, please, if you know better, that they did in fact, that people sold ice cream on the streets in some form in the Victorian times, because I'm not aware that they would have done. But then we also have a helicopter. This ice cream driver switches vehicles in pursuit of a leaping killer. So to make this work with a Spring-Heeled Jack idea, it would have to be a bit of a time travel thing going on. Otherwise, what am I going to do with leaping killer? Some other kind of creature, maybe a modern day version of Spring-Heeled Jack. Perhaps the return of Spring-Heeled Jack. Oh, you could totally do this. You could totally do this. Now, why? Just read it again. The greedy ice cream truck driver flew on a helicopter to reach the leaping killer. It does kind of work with leaping, because if someone's high up, then you might use a helicopter to get to them. So this is really, yeah, I think this could work. It feels quite Batman in a way. I'm seeing rooftops in a city at night. There's tattered rags fluttering in the breeze. You might think a piece of rubbish has been blown by the wind and got caught on a chimney pot, or snagged on a loose tile. But no, the clouds part and the moon shows its face, and we see a strange hunched figure. Is it a man? Is it a woman? Is it a demon? Squatting on the roof, blood on their fingertips. And we hear a scream from across the street. And who will be our hero to pursue this demon, or man in disguise as a demon? An ice cream truck driver? It's an unlikely hero, but there's nothing wrong with that. We do like an underdog from time to time, fighting his way to the top. I mean, but you could use that as a starting point. So perhaps the ice cream truck driver is the first person to try and catch the killer, and they fail miserably. Maybe he dies in the attempt, and then you've got to move on to another potential hero. Or you could stick with your ice cream truck driver. Sorry, I just can't quite get over that. And the helicopter is their first attempt. Bit clunky, doesn't really work because it's too loud and can't get close enough without destroying people's roofs and knocking off all their tiles. Maybe it's time for the ice cream truck driver to don the spandex and get into superhero mode and climb after the villain. Get some skills. Ooh, maybe we might be needing that haberdasher for some fabrics to do this. Okay, this is getting a little bit strange, but I am enjoying. I don't normally go for superhero type things, but this one feels different. It does feel different, and perhaps the idea of rejuvenating a very old villain from Victorian times, that's interesting. Very curious. Spring-heeled Jack returns to our rooftops. I think it's time for a third one, and I've just pulled out a word from Joseph Clark, infinite. Next word is from Anonymous. Leopard. Okay. We have an action word from me. Oh God, here we go. Found a secret inside the pocket in the cloak of what? What am I saying? Oh no, sorry. I can't read my own handwriting. Found a secret inside pocket in the cloak of. Okay. I do not remember writing this. It's been in a sock for a little while. And then we have this is from Pizza Dude, who is a font creator. Risky. Ooh. Okay, one last word. What have we got? This is from Robin again. Beach. What is a risky beach? Oh gosh. Okay, I'm just going to read the whole thing out, and then we shall face it together. We have the infinite leopard found a secret inside pocket in the cloak of the risky beach. What is a risky beach? A shoreline with rubbish that could be dangerous, broken bottles, bits of plastic, or an oil spill. And how could a risky beach have a cloak with or without a secret inside pocket? Unless a secret inside pocket means a portal. Does that make sense? If we're talking about the oil spill being the cloak and a sort of a proverbial cloak and containing or creating a sort of opening to another world. Weirdly enough, one of the stories I've written for my new collection, my new book, does involve a witch tipping over a cauldron whereby the potion, when it hits the floor, creates a doorway through the spilled potion. So it's not quite as strange a concept to me as it might be to you. But what else is going on here? The infinite leopard found a secret inside pocket in the cloak of the risky beach. I'm not sure how this could work, this idea of an oil spill with these portal pockets in it, how that works with an infinite leopard. An immortal big cat creeping along a beach, sniffing the oil spill and finding a hole into another world. It's just too strange, too strange. So I think we need to step away from the literal interpretation of this exquisite corpse. Could the infinite leopard be a work of art? It's making me think about a painting on the side of a vase. And the risky beach, I like the idea of a dangerous place where strange objects have been discarded. It's become a bit of a dump. Maybe things just get washed up in that particular corner in a cove. What if the vase and the cloak are found on this beach? The cloak could be stuffed into the vase, then hidden amongst rubbish on the beach. Someone has used the fact that this is a dump to hide these magical objects. Or maybe just the cloak is the magical object. Then who comes looking for these objects? This is where your imagination can really take hold of a story and build on this idea, because the characters are not in this exquisite corpse. They're outside of the words that we've been given. You could have teenagers or a child, someone who's come to the beach for some space, a bit of a breather. Maybe they've had an argument at home. No one else comes here because there's so much rubbish here. No one really wants to come here. So our teenage character can be sure that they're alone, so they can sulk. Or are they? They see someone poking around in the rubbish. Who could it be? What have they lost? Maybe our teenage character overhears them muttering to themselves or on the phone, believing that they're alone in this place because they haven't spotted our teenager, muttering something about a cloak or magic. And so our ordinary character, so having just stormed out of his or her house after an argument, has actually stumbled into another culture, like a secret part of society that deals in magic. But why has it been hidden on the beach? Why has this cloak been stuffed into a vase? Is this a way of delivering something, like a pickup point? You could start by just writing that scene, just overhearing what the stranger says and what the main character, the teenager, is thinking as they hide there, wondering what to do. And perhaps her foot knocks against a vase with a leopard on it, and she realises what this person's looking for is right there. What is she going to do? And she sees black fabric poking out. So it is worth trying these things without actually knowing all the answers first. Your first draft is for exploring and playing. So just allow your imagination. Give yourself the opportunity to just follow the white rabbit down the hole, not knowing what comes next, because that's part of the pleasure of all of this, of using your imagination. So let's look back over the 3 exquisite corpses and see what ideas we have today. Strangely, we have quite a lot about fabric. We began with a drag queen climbing a mountain for a secret meeting with a haberdasher. Then a winged or cloaked stranger squatting on the rooftops. Could it be a return of Spring-Heeled Jack? The demon of Victorian penny dreadfuls? Who are you going to call? An ice cream truck driver, apparently. Well, everyone's got to start somewhere. You know, these superheroes all have an origin story, so why not? Then we have a mystery on a beach that's become a bit of a dumping ground, where a cloak with a secret inside pocket has been discarded or hidden deliberately, and a teenager who is stumbling into this very strange goings on, a world of magic within her own world. What could happen next? Lots of ideas to work with. So all you need now is a pen and paper, or any device where you can type. Whether you try any of these ideas in first or third person, I hope you're at least tempted to have a go. So, until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstorium. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.